Now, I know that there's a lot on the program, and dinner took a little longer than expected, and so I'll get right to it. But one of the things that you might be wondering is, why do we have this statue or picture of Zydrunas Ilgauskas? Huh? Well, funny you should ask. Kelly and I had the chance to go on a date a couple of weeks ago. A friend of mine, Jim Paxson from the University of Dayton, and for those of you who are mad that they busted your brackets early on, you might be happy to know we're 10 points down to the Gators right now. But he was in town for the event and coming back, and they were retiring Z's number. And so when we went down to, before the game, they had a little party with Z. And the first time I saw him, I thought to myself, Obamacare. Why Obamacare? Well, you can see where I stand. Well, you know, this Z is 7'3" tall. So, you know, let me explain this. Before I was elected to Congress, a Democratic House and a Democratic Senate and a Democratic President passed and signed Obamacare. And the regulations, or the law itself, could you bring that out for me, Tim? This is the copy of the law itself. We'll put it on the table so everyone can back. A mere 2,700 pages. But if you remember, at the time, Speaker Pelosi said, "Don't worry about it, pass it, and we'll figure out what's in it afterwards." And unfortunately, we're finding out what's in it, and it hasn't been all that good for us. But next, you got to see, because of this, you know, in Washington, you can't just have the bill. You have to have the regulations to determine how you handle the bill. And so, Tim, if you would, behind door number 1, we have a lovely model, my wife, Kelly. Thank you, dear. This is affectionately known as the red tape tower. This is the 22,000 pages of regulations that help you define that bill. Now, I first bought, I wanted to see this for myself, so I had this brought up, actually, and this is a photo of it, on the wheels, brought it up to my office, and some of you might remember about a year ago, we took pictures with it and put it on one of our webpage or Facebook or something like that. And so all the other congressmen thought that was a great idea, and they came up to do it too, because they thought it was interesting. But you see, when I went to the University of Dayton in undergrad, I studied accounting. And in law school, I studied nothing but taxes. And so when I got out of school, some of you might remember, there used to be 8 big accounting firms, and now we're down to, I don't know, 2. You know, when I got to D.C., they said, well, you know, 25 years as a prosecutor, maybe you want to do some criminal justice work, or maybe you want to do some judicial work. And I said, no, I want to do the budget, I want to do the taxes. I want to get down to the numbers, because I can understand numbers. Numbers don't lie to you. We can all understand the numbers. You just be fair and straight, put out the numbers, and we know what they are. No one has to explain them to you. And the numbers, when it comes to this law, they're downright scary. And I want to read some of these to you. 23. That is the number of times this administration has delayed mandates or provisions of the Affordable Care Act without any congressional consent. 2.6 trillion. The true cost of health care reform once it's fully implemented. $130 billion. Amount employers will pay in Obamacare mandated penalties from 2013 to 2022. 69,000. That's going to be the shortage of primary care physicians given to you by no less a reliable publication than the New York Times. 4.6 billion. The cost of pending Obamacare proposals to states in the private sector. 47, that's the number of new provisions Obamacare charges the IRS, and we know how good a job they do with implementing through the GAO. $695, that's the tax people will have to pay for not buying those government-approved health insurance plans, and the IRS will be charged with enforcing that. 1,954, that's the number of full-time bureaucrats the IRS wants to devote to Obamacare implementation and enforcement in the upcoming fiscal year. 60 million. That's the number of medical records that the IRS has been charged with improperly seizing, raising concerns about whether the agency can handle the personal health insurance information all Americans will be required to file with the IRS. 6.1 billion. That's the number of man-hours already devoted to tax compliance, according to the National Taxpayer Advocate, a burden that will rise significantly after Obamacare. 21. Those are the number of separate tax provisions in the ACA. 2 million. That is the decline in the number of full-time equivalent workers. Some people not being employed at all and others working less hours. In 2017, rising to about 2.5 million in 2024, stemming from the Affordable Care Act per the Congressional Budget Office. 634 million. That's the estimated cost in taxpayer dollars to get a website up and running. Facebook.com, with over 1 billion users, operated a full 6 years before passing the 600 million mark. Twitter.com, with over 200 million users, operated the first 5 years for 360 million. We know how well the rollout occurred. 2.6 million. That's the number of Americans making under $30,000 at risk of having their hours and wages cut as a result of Obamacare's 30-hour rule. And this last fact I find particularly scary. 31 million. After raising 21 taxes, running 20-some thousand pages of regulations, spending $1.2 trillion just to implement it, we'll still have 31 million people in this country without health insurance, according to the CBO. No matter how you read them, ladies and gentlemen, those are scary numbers. That's why I voted every chance I've had to repeal and defund Obamacare. That's why I voted to repeal and delay the individual and employer mandates. That's also why I voted to fight to make sure millions of Americans could keep their current health care plans when Obamacare forced health insurance companies to cancel millions of hardworking taxpayers' health insurance. Remember the lie. It was the lie of the year. If you like your plan, you can keep it. We know it wasn't true. They know it wasn't true, and they sold it to everyone based on that. Now, if it's good enough for America, it should be good enough for Congress, and it should be good enough for the president. And that's one of the reasons I gave up my taxpayer-supported health care and voted to make sure members of Congress were not given any special treatment. Ladies and gentlemen, I fought for you in D.C., and I will continue to fight for you, because that's all I know how to do. Now, some may say I'm too liberal, and some may say I'm too conservative, but I'm the same guy that was here last year, and I'm the same guy that was 25 years as a prosecutor in Geauga County to make sure the job was done day in, day out. I returned money for 25 years in the prosecutor's office. I returned $100,000 of my account last year to the federal government. We have to continue to do that. We have to run lean and mean, and I promise I will continue that fight for you every day I'm in Washington, D.C. Thank you all for being here tonight. God bless you all, and God bless America.